Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Wishwell Farms for the start of another busy week. So we have 3 new employees starting this week. 2 of them are here today, and the third one starts later in the week. If they're comfortable being on camera, I will introduce you to them. So we have some exciting things happening today that are a little bit out of the norm. First of all, we're going to be transplanting some trial crops. I was sent some seeds from PanAmerican Seed Company. I think they're based out of Chicago. At least that's where the branch is from that sent me the seeds. So one of their sales reps lives nearby me, knows about our farm, and asked me to trial a few of their seeds. And I picked out 2 or 3 items that I was interested in, and they are on the transplanter, ready to go out onto one of our raised beds with black biodegradable mulch. So he sent me a pretty extensive list to choose from. I decided to go with 3 varieties of tomatoes and some pickling cucumbers. And then I also have some okra to put in today. They didn't come from PanAmerican Seeds. I believe they came from Rupp Seeds here in Ohio. I've never really grown okra on any scale whatsoever, and I'm still only putting just 2 trays out, but we're gonna try it out and see how it goes this year. One other different thing that's happening today is I'm going to pick a few tomatoes of the 4 different varieties that I have growing in this greenhouse. I want to let them fully ripen, and then in a future video coming up very soon, I'm going to do a slicing and tasting test on these 4 varieties to see which ones I like the best, to see what you guys think in the comments, and I will probably grow more of that variety in the future. This year is kind of a trial year for us on 2 new varieties. I'll talk more about those in a minute. So I'm gonna head down the barn and get a few picking containers so we can keep these 4 varieties separated, and we'll take a look at them as we're picking them. We'll see how they pick, see how they look, and then we'll let them ripen, and looking forward to tasting all these different tomatoes side by side. Row 1 is Geronimo, row 2 is Novero, row 3 is Ferreria, row 4 is Torero. I wish I had some big Dina to throw in there to trial with these, but I wasn't able to get the seed this year. And I don't even know if it's going to be available ever again, but I'm still going to try because that was one of my favorite varieties. But let's get some of all these 4 picked, and we'll let them ripen, and we'll see how they taste here in a couple days. I think I'll pick maybe 3 of each variety. All right, there's our 3 Geronimo. All right, let's pick a few Noveros. I notice they have just a little bit of a russeting on top. This one has a little bit more. You can see those little micro cracks rings around the top. That generally means it's an environmental issue. It probably gets a little humid in here. Maybe I should start rolling my sides up just a little bit earlier in the morning. And 3 Torero. On Mondays, it's pretty easy to find nice red ones because they had a 2-day weekend to ripen up. And finally, I'm gonna pick 3 tomatoes of the variety Ferreria. I might not be saying that right. Ferreira, I just say Ferreria. And at first glance down through here, they don't look as thick as some of the other varieties. That's interesting. All right, there's our 3 Ferreria. Now I realize that almost all of you will have no interest in these 4 varieties because these are greenhouse varieties, but I still think it's gonna be very interesting to see how they differ from each other, mainly for my own purposes, and I hope you find it interesting as well. Now, one of the things I want to look at in here is the difference in the plant habitat. Which ones are not growing the longest, the fastest, which ones have the least amount of suckers and extra leaves that we have to prune off. So, things like that. Which ones have the strongest tomato trusses that don't get elongated and kink on us. With all this sunlight we've been having the last couple days, the lengths of the trusses are shortening and they aren't stretching as much. So June, late May and early June is definitely better for growing greenhouse tomatoes. All right, here's my 4 varieties: Torero, Geronimo, Novero, and Ferreria. And we'll give them about 3 or 4 days to ripen, and then we'll slice them open and give them a taste. As you can see, we got a pretty good load of tomatoes in here right now. Got about a half a skid there and almost 3 full skids here. And we're going to be adding another 100 to 120 boxes today right there. We are getting a bunch of tomatoes right now. We are almost peaking right now. When we start getting about 120 to 140 boxes, we have peaked. And it'll stay there for a week or two, then it'll start tapering off a little bit. And then the next greenhouse will come on. It'll probably never come back to that level, but we should be consistently picking 60 to 100 boxes every other day, hopefully. Grapes were way down again, less than half of what we normally get, and that is due to all the cloudy weather we had for the last 2 weeks. But the red round tomatoes are doing fabulous. We've already got 20 tubs in the barn, and they are still picking. Had to set up an extra table to hold them all. We just finished up all of our greenhouse work. Everybody's in here packing tomatoes now. We ended up with 26 tubs, so it was a pretty good pick today. I'm guessing it's going to be around 115 boxes. And we are going to run out of boxes, so we bought a stack of new ones that we have to get folded up. Where's Gavin at? Oh. So I'm currently out here in last year's cauliflower patch, and we never got our drip tape pulled up last fall. And I'm gonna need to disc this back up because we're gonna be a little short on ground to get the rest of our mulch laid. So I got Ken and Gavin back there pulling up the final 8 rows of drip tape that didn't get done last fall. And then this is all biodegradable mulch here. Then I can get it all disced in. And we may have to use this for laying the last few beds. Most of it's gonna go right over here, but I'm gonna be just a little bit short on space. I'll probably have to lay 4 or 5 beds here in last year's cauliflower patch. Just about got the last of it pulled in the wagon. This is definitely a first for me. I have never pulled up drip tape in the spring in my entire life. But now this is all ready to disc in. So we'll probably get about 15 or 20 rows right there, just on the other side of the sweet corn. And I'm guessing we're gonna come all the way over to about here to fit everything in. Now that it's nice and dry, I can finally get the rest of the disking done. So I'm hoping to disc it either tonight or tomorrow and then get the rest of the plastic finished up for the season. And we also have mulch that will be laid right here too. Looks like we got room for about 15 rows here. I know there's a lot of you that are probably curious about the red Deuce tomatoes. I'm in the red Deuce patch currently. We have 2 rows in here beside our grape tomatoes that are right behind me. And they're about waist high. They're looking really good. Lots of flowers. The first cluster did not set fruit very well, probably due to some of the chemical damage, but they have come out of it. They look really good. And today we are removing the lower 5 branches, approximately 4 to 6 branches and suckers at the base of the plant. So on these plants, it's basically the bottom foot of the plant. We're just stripping it clean, and that'll create more airflow through the plants and allow the fruit that do form on the plants higher up in here to be larger. So I don't have a lot of experience doing this. I've just been told by several growers this is how they do it. We have typically only removed 3 to 4 branches on our field tomatoes. These are basically field tomatoes. They're the same type of determinate tomato that we grow out in our open fields. But instead of 3 to 4, we're gonna move it up to 5 or 6 and see if that will help promote bigger tomatoes in the greenhouse, because they will grow a little more vigorously, a little taller. I'm expecting to see them get up to the top of these T-posts every bit of 6 feet tall. So they're looking really good. Happy with what I see. So you can see how thick these are down here. A lot of suckers. We probably waited way too long to do this, but you gotta do it. One grower told me he does it when the suckers are only a couple inches. Another grower told me to wait until there's more plant here. So who knows? If you are a grower and you do this to your plants out in your field, let me know your practices for removing branches and suckers on determinate tomatoes. Last year we didn't do it at all. We left everything on here and they did okay, but I do remember seeing more small tomatoes. We didn't get as many large ones that we would like to see. So hopefully this will help. So I'm looking for that first cluster, leaving the branch under that cluster and then removing everything else, which is typically just from the cube to the string trellis. Yeah, they're coming off good. You can see how much it opens up down here when we remove those. That'll help prevent disease issues by having more airflow through here. Keep the plant a little drier and less humid down here where all this extra plant material is. All the employees just finished up for the day and are heading home for lunch. I'm gonna go ahead and take a lunch break myself, and then Gavin and I are going to transplant one row of those trial plants that I was telling you about earlier. 3 varieties of tomatoes, some pickling cucumbers, and some okra. Let's check out today's pick and see what we got. Oh, it's a big stack. I like to see that. We are in good shape now. We'll go look at the harvest sheet and see what the total was, but I'm guessing that's about 110 boxes. So yeah, we got a nice supply stocked up for farmers markets and our mobile market trailer. And these are some of the ones that came back from Saturday. They're nice and ripe. We should be able to get rid of most of those before the weekend. This is one of my main concerns right here. Look how small our grape tomato pick was. That's terrible. It's not even enough for one farmer's market. Fortunately, we have a nice supply here from last week, but we will blow through those quickly. All right, let's see how many boxes of tomatoes we got today. Oh, 98. I was wrong. I thought it was over 100. That's a good pick though, our biggest one of the year. So this is my harvest sheet. We write the date here, how many boxes of tomatoes we got out of the greenhouse. These are the hydroponic tomatoes. How many pints we picked. And then, we got sweet corn, green beans, cantaloupe and watermelon, and then our field tomatoes. I used to keep detailed harvest records of every crop I grew, but now I just do the main ones that I showed you there. I don't keep track of cucumbers, zucchini, yellow squash, eggplant, or peppers any longer. Back after lunch, filling up the transplanter with some water, and I wanted to show you these seed varieties that we are trialing. So earlier I said these seeds were from Paramount Seeds. I was wrong. PanAmerican Seed, a division of Ball Horticulture. So I got Wonder Star Pink, Wonder Star Red, Artemis, and then these are like little mini cucumbers called Quick Snack, edible potted kitchen minis. We just finished putting in our trial row of veggie plants and we used a couple different spacings. Let me show you what we got going on here. So at the beginning of the row, we started with okra at a 1.5 foot spacing all the way to right here. And then we changed it over to a 2.5 foot spacing, the spacing we use for our tomatoes because we have some tomatoes down there. And I wanted to see how the okra performs at the 30-inch spacing versus the 18-inch spacing. So that'll be very interesting. I was looking at the Midwest Vegetable Production Guide. and it recommended 12 to 18 inches on the okra. So that's why I started at 18 inches. But I remember seeing okra pretty tall and bushy. So it'll be interesting to see how it does at 2.5 feet. And here are the tomato plants. They're very small, but they were big enough to transplant. I wanted to get them out of my greenhouse so they can take off. So there's the Wonder Star. That would be a red variety. And this next one right here is Artemis. The Artemis tomatoes were really small. I got about 30 of each plants. And the final variety is Wonderland Pink, I believe. Let's check the label out. Yes, I just put pink on the label, but this is the Wonderland Pink. And then we got the little quick snack pickling cucumbers that are looking beautiful. They were growing very vigorously in the greenhouse. I'm sure these things will vine off the plastic in about 10 to 15 days. And then right beside here on these other 4 rows are the winter squash me and my kids put in a couple days ago. We got 2 varieties of butternut squash, Betternut 900 and Quantum. And then we got 2 rows of Primavera spaghetti squash. Somewhere around here, there is something burning. It almost looks hazy out. Do we have wildfire somewhere? Now that I think about it, it seems like I read somewhere that there's wildfires. Maybe it's Canadian wildfires and the haze is blowing down from the north. I don't know. But yeah, it smells like a campfire, a slight burnt campfire smell. And I noticed it just looks a little hazy everywhere. Even though we got a clear blue sky, it's not a deep dark blue, just a little hazy out. So there must be some wildfire somewhere. Let me know in the comments if you know about this. Well, I'm gonna head out and plant another ½ acre of green beans. I put green beans out every 7 days, all summer long until the beginning of August. And now that everything's dry, I can put the green beans wherever I want. All right, I'm out here planting green beans in this 6-acre field. I'm gonna split it at the waterway down there. Be sweet corn on the other side and green beans on this side, and I did the opposite last year. I just finished Valentino, getting ready to switch over to Dark Horse. Those are my 2 favorite varieties. And we're also gonna put some yellow wax beans in today. I just call them yellow because it's a number. Here's a new bag, SV1003GF. I've planted 2 other yellow wax bean varieties in the past that actually had names, but I've switched over to this number about 3 years ago and been pretty happy with them. All right, I'm emptying out the leftover Valentino. So the way I do this is I remove the hopper, dump it into the next hopper, put this hopper back on, and then repeat the process on down the line. I always put more beans in the hoppers than I need because I don't want to run out. I don't have a seed monitor right now, so as long as I put plenty of beans in there, I don't have to worry about it. And then the 4th and final hopper, I'll just dump back into the bag. I wanted to show you up close what one of the rows looks like. So there's still plenty of moisture in the soil. You can see it's even almost a little bit muddy right there, but not too bad. And when you get to the end of the row and I pull the planter up, you can see this seed furrow that is opened up by the double disc openers, and the bean cups are dropping the seed down there. And you can see the seeds are kind of just randomly dropped in there. Sometimes you'll have two right side by side, but they're supposed to be about 1.5 inches apart. And then when I stop to pull the planter up out of the ground, it drops a whole bunch. That's why there's like 20 seeds right there. So my green bean plantings are not coming up very well, especially my first two plantings. They look terrible. That one early variety that is 0099, you know, it doesn't have a name, it's a number. It all came up pretty good. But then Valentino and Dark Horse didn't come up worth a darn. Like, it's so bad, I'm just gonna disc them under. That way I can replant there maybe next week. My third planting came up great. I mean, it looks absolutely beautiful. It's like every seed germinated and came through the ground. It's about 1.5 inches tall, which I planted last week. So I'll try to swing by there and show you that on the way back to my farm. I'm putting 16 rows out of Valentino, 16 of Black Horse, and then just one pass of 4 rows of the yellow wax. Green beans are in the ground, but now I gotta walk a half mile back to my house because I don't have a ride down here. I can always take the tractor, but I need to leave it here because tomorrow I'm hoping to hook it back up to my raised bed mulch layer back there in the barn to finish laying our final beds and mulch tomorrow afternoon or evening. Well, I don't have to walk home after all. My wife was at home and willing to come and get me, so she's coming down the road right now. As soon as I get home, I want to hop on the Ranger and go show you that beautiful patch of green beans that's coming up. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see these. They're all about 1 inch or so. First true leaves popping open. Normally I plant these all the way to the waterway, about another 150 feet, but there was a huge washout right here from the heavy rains and I had to cultivate it up and smooth it out, so I'll have to piece in this little corner another time. I'm at the other side of this planting right now, so this is the final row right here, and it goes all the way over to the Ranger. 30 some rows, I think. You can see the beans coming up pretty good down the rows there. And the ground is really hard and crusty right now. That's what tends to happen when you try to plant when it's a little sticky out. Then it dries to a hard crust, and sometimes vegetable seeds will have difficulty emerging. But these came up really well. Look at those. It's almost a perfect stand. I'm always leery about putting my vegetables so close to our field corn. So you can see there's only a little 15-foot path here between these crops. Hopefully this field corn doesn't need sprayed again. It will take off pretty quickly now that it's warming up, and it should close in with a canopy, and that will kind of snuff out the sunlight to be able to reach the ground to help the weed seeds grow. So I'm hoping they don't have to spray that again. But if they do, we just have to be very careful that there's no drift coming over into my green beans. This area of ground was really wet just a couple days ago. You can see how dry it is now. Everybody should be out planting in Ohio today. I know we have been. There's a look at all my greenhouses in the distance there. My brother's been planting up a storm all day today, and I'm pretty sure he's gonna finish our 900 acres of soybeans by tomorrow night. And all of our field corn is completely done already. I think we have an acre or two that we need to replant that where it didn't come up, and I'll probably use my little 4-row planter to go in and piece that in. But after tomorrow night, we should be completely done with our row crops, and then we can just concentrate solely on all the vegetables. Well, it's 4 p.m. I feel like I got everything accomplished today that I needed to get done. Still lots to do here in the next few days because we have a dry sunny stretch until Thursday, I think. And then I think there's rain moving in again. So I'm hoping to get some disking done tomorrow and the rest of that mulch laid, and maybe a little bit of spraying, get some weeds under control, and we're getting pretty caught up on everything. So I usually call it quits around 4 p.m. because I like to lift weights about 4 days a week before I go in for dinner at 5 o'clock and get some editing done. I want to keep providing fresh content for you fine folks. So that's kind of what I do each evening. But if there is something important that needs done after dinner, I do go out, like if I have some planting to do or some spraying or just other greenhouse projects that need accomplished before the next day, I do come out after dinner, and I don't have a problem working late if I have to, but if I'm able to call it quits after supper, that's always nice. It'll be really interesting to see how the trial plants do in our fields that we put out today. The pink tomatoes, regular tomatoes, pickling cucumbers, and the okra. These are all things I've never planted before, and I will give you guys many updates throughout the season on how they're performing in our field, as well as the 4 varieties of tomatoes that I picked today. I'm looking forward to finishing that part of the video where I slice them all open and see how they look inside and tasting them. That'll be a fun one to do, and looking forward to sharing all that information with you folks. This is where we're going to wrap this one up. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it, and I will see you all again next time down on the farm.